Good morning and welcome to the pre-agenda interviews for Wednesday, June 18th, 2025 for the PLI Assistant Director and the Gender Equity Commission. Would the clerk please read the title of the bill? And while she does that, those here for the interview, if you please be willing to come forward and take your seat at the table.
Bill 1832, Resolution informing Council of the appointment of Robert Columbus as Assistant Director, Code Enforcement in the Department of Permits, Licenses, and Inspections. Bill 1754, Resolution appointment of Audra Mitchell as a member of the Gender Equity Commission with a term to expire April 1st, 2028. Bill 1757, Resolution appointment of Crystal Wamalawa as a member of the Gender Equity Commission with a term to expire April 1st, 2028. And Bill 1755, Resolution appointment of Terry Minor Spencer as a member of the Gender Equity Commission with a term to expire April 1st, 2028.
Thank you. What I would like to now do is, I know we've read the names, but if you could introduce yourself for the record and just tell us a little bit about yourself, why you're interested in serving, and then we'll go down the line and members may trickle in and may have questions.
My name is Audra Mitchell. I am the Board of Directors President for Pittsburgh Action Against Rape. I am also a survivor of intimate partner sexual violence here in the city. In my role as the Board President for PAR, I have seen how systems are designed not with the folks that they serve at heart. And it is my goal with this role in the Gender Equity Commission to ensure that all Pittsburghers are treated equally, equitably, and fairly, as I think we all hope this city would.
Thank you.
Hello, everyone. My name is Crystal Wamalawa. I am the Executive Director of Audacity Art Alliance. I also currently serve as a board member for the Greenwood Plan, which is based out of Emerald City, the Black-owned building downtown. And my reason for wanting to serve on the board is because within Audacity, our whole premise is about accessibility to resources and support. And within this role, it would allow me the opportunity to continue that fight for Black women and other people of color, and making sure that not only our Black creative entrepreneurs have that support, but also people within the community that didn't realize they should have access. And so using this opportunity to support, continue to help, and really push the mission and the vision of not only the city, but also Audacity as well.
Thank you.
Good morning. My name is Robert Columbus. As the current Assistant Director of Code Enforcement, I have extensive municipal experience combined with disciplined military background and a strong commitment to community engagement. Over the years, I've successfully managed multiple teams of inspectors and overseen millions of dollars in contracts to ensure strict compliance with codes such as the International Fire Code, Property Maintenance Code, Building Code, and NFPA standards. My leadership skills were honed during my military service and as a contractor for the Department of Defense, where I directed complex emergency situations, supervised large teams, and maintained high standards of safety and compliance under pressure. This instilled in me a results-driven, decisive approach that enhances my ability to manage the challenges of code enforcement. In addition to my regulatory expertise and my operational leadership, I prioritize transparent communication and collaborative relationships with other city departments, legal professionals, residents, and community leaders. I believe that by fostering these partnerships, I ensure enforcement is fair, consistent, and aligned with community needs with which strengthens public trust and contributes to a safer, healthier neighborhood.
Thank you very much. And for the record, we've been joined by councilpersons Strasburger, Charlin, and Warwick. And we'll start the end and work our way forward. Do you have any questions or comments, Councilman Warwick?
Yeah, sure. So, with regard to PLI, I guess it seems like, well, I mean, there's sort of permitting and then there's enforcement. So I guess I'll stick to, so from the, from a council perspective, I have to say I've been pleased with the number of demos that I've seen. I mean, obviously we could always do more, you know. But I just wondered if you have, but one thing I will say is that maybe one area that I feel like there could be improvement is in communication around those you know what I mean? Just sort of for at least as a council member to kind of know what demos are coming, or have a little bit more open line of communication if there is a particular property. So I don't know, I guess just what are your thoughts just as assistant director? You know, what's working, what are things that you would keep doing, and maybe what are some things that you might look at adjusting?
To be perfectly honest with you, I'm fairly new to the role, and I'm learning the new parameters and the new dynamics. And what I hope to do is ask members of council and community leaders and my leadership for feedback to how to improve, and go from there. And so I would say, without getting too far into the weeds, that I would definitely improve our public outreach and our communication with community leaders.
And we've talked a lot about litter specifically around vacant and abandoned properties. Is there any scenario where PLI, or where you could see PLI, as opposed to just the enforcement, like just the ticketing, or you know what I mean, and following up in court, where PLI could perhaps work more closely with DPW to get those properties cleaned up more quickly? I mean, so I'll say that's been an issue that I've experienced, where it's like there's a property with just like awful, you know, whatever the situation, garbage or whatever, weeds, garbage, etc. But specifically garbage, where it's like, I mean, I remember once a couple summers ago, it was like, and I actually went and cleaned it up myself because it was like, it was that bad, right? And it was just like hot. It was the summer. It was I mean, it was just, and yeah, there was enforcement, but then it was like, oh, we have to wait 30 days or whatever to go to, you know, and then it was just like this waiting period that was just not acceptable to just leave that situation as it was. I don't know if you have any thoughts on that.
Well, as you know, DPW is standing up an environmental services team, and we are working closely with them and handing off responsibilities, and their leadership is very capable of managing these challenges, and we are looking forward to working closely with them and helping them in any way.
Okay, so are you looking at process? So, I mean, I guess what I would like to see in terms of that particular process is like an immediate, I mean, I understand that we need to ticket and there needs to be evidence and time given, but still just to get in and clean it up. I don't know if there's a way, is that like a legal issue, or what is the barrier now to being able to do that from your understanding?
DPW works very hard, and they are, and they're very capable. They're just, while your district is in need, there are many other districts, and they are inundated with reports of this throughout the city. And I believe it's, I don't want to speak for another department, but for cleaning,
I guess
for
what
the
I'm
actual
asking,
cleaning.
is there a role that you think perhaps PLI could play in assistance there? Maybe there's not, I don't know. Or is it just like you're just straight, just, you know, demos of the property and, you know, inspecting the building, and that's you guys are strictly the building and not the environment around the building?
I feel like that the answer to your question is nuanced, and I would be happy to follow up with you later once I do a little research and speak with my leadership. And
okay, it's just something to think about going forward, because it just feels like there's a disconnect, right? Like it all feels like one problem, right? Like buildings and their yards and their, right? And yet we're dealing with them like they're sort of two separate problems. Anyway, just a thought.
Understood. I'd be happy to, well, before I leave, I'd be happy to share my contact information with everybody here, just in case you don't have it. I know we have had an active dialogue, and I'd be happy to follow up that conversation, and we can talk about that later.
Great.
Thank you.
Thanks. I guess for the Gender Equity Commission, so I know that there's lots of good work that's being done. Maybe other members are more, but I know that there's a sort of an equity study. We're looking at contract, city contracts, and not just if the owner of the company is MWB, but also the folks working for the company. I'm not too familiar with the role that the Gender Equity Commission, if any, is playing in that process. I don't know if you are, or if you have thoughts on how the commission, sort of the work the commission is doing now, and maybe how that could be improved or deepened going forward.
Absolutely. So I am new to the role. This is my first introduction into the committee in itself, and I have spoken to the team members that have reached out to me on the expectations of what is needed of me as an individual coming in to learn about the organization. And so my intent is to do everything within my power to make sure that we do have that equity across the board for different contracts within the city, and making sure people have access. And so I can only speak to what I have knowledge of right now, but I can guarantee that I will use everything within my power to make sure that information is shared throughout the community fairly, and making sure it is not a siloed experience for people in the inner city or people that do not live specifically in Pittsburgh, but people that live in the counties of surrounding Pittsburgh has access to that within what I can do, and making sure the board and the committee that work alongside me, we all do that as well.
Coming from a gender-based violence lens with Pittsburgh Action Against Rape, gender-based violence does not happen in a vacuum, it happens in a system. And when we use our voices and we use our power to lift up marginalized communities, women, girls, LGBTQIA identities, we set up a system in which gender-based violence can be eradicated without making those steps, and without putting equities within our frameworks. We're setting up a system in which gender-based violence not only is inevitable, but it's accepted. And so for me, my goal with the Gender Equity Commission is to bring that voice of Pittsburgh Action Against Rape and other victim services agencies to the table to make sure that those voices are heard in this process.
Right. Did you have some? Oh.
No, I'm okay.
And one thing too, and it's more of an observation, I guess, is we do a lot of work at the city around violence interruption, and it's great work. And I know that the organizations that are doing it are trying to reach out more to young women and girls, but it's even sort of across, even in like our city sports and in our, there's lots that there's a lot for boys, right? There's a lot for boys and young men. There are lots of services, and it doesn't feel like there is as much. Now maybe it's an issue of demand, I don't know, but it would be great to see the commission kind of deep dive into those, whether it's services provided by the city, or whether it's our partners, just making sure that there are similar opportunities and organizing around young girls.
Completely agree.
Okay, well, I don't think I have any other questions. Maybe I'll think of something else as my colleagues.
Thank you. Councilman Charlin?
Good morning. Thanks for being here. Thanks for your willingness to serve. Both on a board and in an elevated role here. So I want to start off with Director Columbus, Assistant Director Columbus here. As you've already have the position, we wanted an opportunity to meet with you here. It's no surprise to you and to everyone else on this council that the way we tackle urban blight is the issue that I'm most passionate about. And I do believe that there is a lot of room to grow in the way that we handle demolitions. And I wanted to ask you how you thought that you could see this function of the city continue to grow and continue to tackle what I believe is our most important issue.
Demolition is a very complicated issue. Determining what to demolish, determining engaging with the community. There's community pushback on certain things, and then there are differences in messaging of who wants what where. How it would grow. Currently, we have a pretty efficient program. The holdups being, as with all municipalities, would be funding. As you know, we have two different funding sources. We have discretionary funding, PAYGO, and we have CDBG funding. I think the message that I'd like to get across is that with discretionary funding being what it is, we try to be prudent and hold that money for emergencies that may come and then spend it further on in the year. And with CDBG funding, it has to go through an extensive environmental review that can take up to 6 months. On top of that, we operate our budget year for CDBG starts in October, and we will not get that funding until November. Currently, all I can say definitively is that the demolition program is active. It does have room for improvement. It does have room to grow. But I would be remiss if I were to sit here and tell you what I think should happen. I'm here to carry out what the lawmaking bodies of this city pass, and I would have to talk with my leadership and discuss it further before I say it in a public setting.
Sure. So you mentioned the two main tracks of funding that we talk about, the CDBG and the PAYGO funding. Mm-hmm. One thing that we've talked a little bit about with your department has been what it would look like to go after other dollars. And what I mean by that has been other grants, other, getting nonprofits to pay into the demolition fund, and looking again, another drum that I think is really important to beat here is that we are not the only city in America that has this problem. Mm-hmm. What are we looking at to try to find outside sources of funding to help get some of our demolitions? You mentioned the community input, and I can tell you, I know this isn't true for all of the council districts, but with rare exception of maybe a historic building here or there is no demolition that you would do in my district that would not be welcome. So I guess in my mind, there's no amount of funding or there's no amount of work that you could do that would ever be too much in my district. Obviously that's balanced with what we can move to the land bank and what we can resell here as well. But what kind of creative ideas have you thought about as you move into your new role, where this is now your responsibility to receive funding outside of those two mainstreams? And if I can add a caveat there, how can I help you with that?
For now, the help we would seek is feedback. What we're doing well, what we can improve on. There are certain ideas that have been brought up in the past. As you may know, we've attended a national conference, SCEMA, it's Strategic Code Enforcement Management Association. It's held in Memphis, and it brings a lot of major cities, Chicago, Syracuse, Dallas. They all converge, and they talk about different ideas, such as targeted CDBG funding, such as receivership, which is a form of conservatorship. The land bank being a good third leg of code enforcement to take on those properties that may or may not be eligible for demolition. All of these are great ideas, and again, I would just, because it's tailored specifically to certain districts and certain neighborhoods and community need and equity, we would have to get with each leader and just discuss what may or may not be needed in your neighborhoods and how you can help.
Sure. We can have that meeting with the leaders in my neighborhood, but I can tell you their response is tear that house down. whatever house that is that they're referring to, it's tear that house down. So, Rob, I appreciate your communication with my office. I think one of the things that isn't always understood by folks in the administration is that when we're hammering you for a question and you're not getting back to us and we're following up and following up and following up, it's not because we're annoyed. It's because we are getting a phone call from a constituent who is sometimes in tears on the other end of the line of, what are you going to do? This house is going to come down. And so continuing that communication, I think that is the one of the most important things that your division of your department can do, to just keep us in the loop. Sometimes the answer is going to be no, but if you don't give us that no, and then we're on the line saying, I don't know, I sent an email, really makes us look bad at our jobs, and is the reason why sometimes we come across to PLI leadership a little hot. So keeping us in the loop, even if the answer is no, or I'm looking into this, that is certainly something that we want to see. But I stand committed as your partner here. Whatever we can do to help you succeed at your job is vitally important for our districts. So thank you for your willingness to serve. For the Gender and Equity Commission, I have really just kind of one question, and again, thank you for your willingness to serve here. But in 2025, in a year where so many things are coming out of the federal government, how do you see your role on the Gender Equity Commission changing in this environment? And what do you think the Gender Equity Commission can do? And again, how can we help you?
One thing I think as Pittsburghers, we probably all know, is that we really can't control what comes down from the federal government. What we can control is how we react to it and how we support and uplift our neighbors from any community, from any marginalized community, including the work that we're doing on the Gender Equity Commission. I think it's incumbent on us leaders in our community to stand up for what's right. And that is an inclusive city that works for all, regardless of gender identity. And that is my commitment when I serve on this committee, to bring those values to bear.
My biggest thing is access. I use that as a premise for everything that I do. I use my platform, I use my voice, I use every event that I attend, every workshop, access. And one of the areas that I really see me being able to bring to the table is access to the different resources and opportunities that the Gender Equity Inclusion Committee will provide, and allow people to be able to come into the room and have a seat at the table to learn about these different aspects of the city of Pittsburgh and the different things that are taking place, and also using it as an opportunity to educate people. I think a lot of people, they hear these terms and they hear these words, they see these buildings and see these people in leadership, and it's very overwhelming. As an inner city Black kid from Baltimore that moved to Pittsburgh, I had a passion for politics and being in city council, but not everyone had that experience. Not everyone had a family member that put them into those spaces. And so being the voice and that bridge to bring people to these resources and helping them and teaching them and sitting down with them, take hand in hand and being like, this is what this means, and this is how it can affect you. And I think that's really where I plan to shine. Like I said, using my platform, my voice in my community and my network to really expand that reach and horizon for what the Gender Equity Inclusion Committee can do for that.
Awesome. Well, thank you very much for your willingness to serve, and Council President.
Thank you. Councilman Wilson.
Thank you, Mr. President. My question is for Rob. So thanks for being here.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, it's it's a moment where we get to interview, but really we're not voting on your appointment. So I think this was put in place some time ago for assistant directors to come before us so we can put a face to, obviously to see the credentials and everything that will qualify you to be in that position. So, more or less just a conversation of, how you see yourself in this role, and usually it's a time also for members to express, their frustrations with their district and how PLI could possibly help, which is a pretty daunting task since we, essentially don't fund every department to the level that we could. But, I'm glad you're willing to take this on. I know that there are definitely some specific, demo, you've definitely been a part of the demo. I think I first met you whenever we had to do emergency demo on a church. The church was doing work without a permit. I can't remember exactly what happened, but some beam must have let out, and the whole church blew out into the street. And you were under Mark Mariani at the time, and that was quite a learning moment for me. I think I wasn't even in office for a year yet. So anyway, it's been good to get to know you throughout the years, and I'm happy to see that you're now an assistant director in PLI, and looking forward to working together in the future. A couple things I just want to highlight that I thought were interesting along the way of trying to solve some of the problems in my district. Let's just take the one in Spring Garden recently that currently, we don't have to say the address, but basically it's a house that the owner was responsible. There was still an owner that was communicating. So, and they were saying now the permit, maybe it's demoed now. But when it started out, I remember it being in agency counter for like a day, and then like there was a complaint into agency counter, 311 agency counter, and then residents were worried about it falling into the street, and so 311 agency counter, and then it went straight to it left agency counter and went to the magistrate. And then I think that's where you intervened, and you made sure that there was contact with the owner. Can you just help me understand like why things would leave agency counter sooner than it, from my angle, sooner than it should? Or from my viewpoint, it's like,
Can you elaborate more on that? How did it leave agency counter?
Well, let's just make sure I understand. So agency counter is like, it's PLI's area where they take in 301 complaints, right?
I'm actually glad that you brought that up. Not
Yeah.
to break into a tangential topic, but agency counter is, for those that you don't know, is a way for the public to, it's a touch base for the public to look in any property information online, and that is slowly going away. We are going to we're going to keep that up and running until we get buy-in from the community for our new program. It's called One Stop PGH Insights, and this new website will allow us to convey more information that is being sought out by the public, such as last inspection, inspection score, court dates, violations, property owners. A lot of what is conveyed in agency counter, but more in depth. And I'm sorry, the initial
Yeah, I was just
question
wondering. So, well, with that going away, and basically it's a way for the public to see what PLI, how PLI can be involved in the 301 complaints. From my angle, I'm like, okay, there was a 301 complaint, went to agency counter, and I'm just wondering, how you see just, that community, that, like it shouldn't take a assistant director to weigh in to help the public understand what's going on with the property. So it hasn't really, like I'm appreciative that you're, so responsive and everything, but I often just say like, we should be trying to fix things so it doesn't take a council person to like talk to, a constituent about something so it looks so obvious that we should either tear it down or the owner should tear it down sooner. So I just didn't know if you had any insight on like how to make that system better.
Understood. In that specific case, the grease to that machine was the magistrate in the district, Jehoshua Wright. He had the property owner in court, and he had a question about our process, and he called me, and he put me in touch with the owner, and that opened up a line of communication outside of what our current process is, which is everybody gets the same due process. And while our numbers are posted, we try to reach out when we can. Sometimes we're not successful. In that case, he was the bridge that helped that demolition. Well, their private demolition. It helped it be expedited. Again, looking for feedback from each individual district, from your neighborhoods. I do believe that.
I realize we're not going to solve this here. I just know that.
I understand.
Like Jehoshua or Judge Wright having your contact, like that's great. I'm just thinking like, long term. We can talk about this. Besides this, but that's what I'm always looking to figure out how.
A low-hanging fruit subject that I would consider is an information loop. That is the information loop between what our inspectors are saying, what our notices are saying, and what our websites are saying, and making sure that everybody's trained in soft skills and being able to express and communicate, and keeping the lines of communication open so that we can better facilitate those needs.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I mean, it's not a fair situation to put leadership of PLI in terms of like being, responsible for all the vacant and abandoned property issues in Pittsburgh, because, I mean, there's just so much of it that, this is something we should have, or that they were. It's just a complicated issue. So, it's like if you had a magic wand, this would be, there would have been a different effort put in place 5 years ago to solve why some of these, vacant structures are still around, and we let property owners, let the property deteriorate So, yeah, it's a rough situation, but I appreciate you want to be a part of it. It's pretty brave of you, and looking forward to just how we can continue to improve the system, and then for the appointees to the Gender Equity Commission, thank you for showing up. I appreciate your willingness to serve, and congratulations.
Thank you very much. I'll keep my questions and remarks brief. Mr. Columbus, thank you for your willingness to serve in this role, and the answers you've provided already demonstrate the depth of your knowledge. Even though I know you're going to be new in this new role, you clearly understand a lot about how the department works and opportunities for growth. My one request, I think that the department has done a tremendous job in, as we've discussed, providing the information to the public so that we don't always have to find a human and talk to them and ask what the status is, and et cetera, et cetera. Like there are maps, there are resources, we can find that for ourselves. It's tremendously helpful. And yet there are those times that we as council members or even the public needs to just talk to a human being and get walked through the process and understand a little bit more. And so my ask is that, that you take that back to the department in your new role, and it's something I'll continue to hammer with leadership at PLI, that, continue to teach us and our staff and the public how to use these tools, and maybe even doing a tour of, these tools with community groups, as has been done in the past in previous iterations of PLI. And if there can be, that person that we just know we can call, who's going to be the one who's going to inspect, or overseeing the person who's going to inspect, to find that those edge cases that are just really hard to manage. That would be my one request. No need to respond, but if you have a response, that's totally fine too.
As you were speaking, you had stated something that kind of had me recollect on Bob Charlin's question on how we can improve. And the one thing I'd like to highlight and point out as a win for us is we have an excellent data systems team. We have an excellent systems administration team led by Mr. Neil Gerback, and he has really driven home how we're using data analysis for code enforcement and for demolition. And he is behind One Stop PGH Insights, One Stop PGH. He's really leading the charge, and if anything, that is how we're going to improve, is through data analysis and have a more data-driven code enforcement take on it. And again, thank you for the question, and thank you for your kind words and your comments.
Thank you. Thank you.
We'll be happy to, anything new coming out, I'm sure we'll be happy to address the public and be happy to meet with you and talk about your needs.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Would love that. To our incoming members of the Gender Equity Commission, I've been a supporter of this commission since its inception, and I'm really appreciative of your willingness to serve. And I think that unfortunately we're at a time where I think we as a country have backslid in gender equity and all sorts of different types of equity in the cultural, just in our culture and who we are as a country. And I'm a strong believer that, while we can produce all the reports we want and find the data, and just right now, meeting people where they are and being out in the public could be one of the bigger issues that we need to contend with, to have those tough conversations and to start to move the needle with our friends and allies and those who might not agree with us, right? And then, form the policies in the city that we really want. So that's kind of where I'm feeling what I'm feeling in my heart right now. I don't know if there's, it's very general, very broad. It's not any kind of question, but if there's anything that you think, any opportunities you see in your seat right now, not having fully joined the commission, to be able to just, be more present not just in a room meeting and deciding, policies and advocacy, which is all important, but also out there present and working with people who are out there, in the public like us in our offices.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm very excited to be back in these kinds of spaces and connecting with you all. And like I said, I'm really looking forward to using my platform and my community to really expand on the resources that this commission does offer. And anything Audacity can do to help support, push, advocate, spread the word about, I'm happy to use our platform to do. And I'm happy to also use my board seat for the Greenwood Plan as well to support those initiatives.
Great.
One of the things that excited me most when this opportunity came about was the really thoughtful selection of members of the committee to be people in the community who are actually doing the work and have those community connections. I think the folks on the commission and the folks I'm seeing come on the commission at the same time I am, are people who have those deep community connections. PAR has been serving Pittsburgh and Allegheny County for over 50 years as the sole rape crisis center. And so we are really ingrained in what those communities need, what communities are asking for, and I think that myself and other members of the committee can really act as that liaison between this, the city and that sort of grand idea of the city, and really what the residents and the people who visit here need and actually want from their city.
Yeah, thank you. Well, thank you both for the roles you serve outside of the Gender Equity Commission and for your soon-to-be roles on the commission. Really appreciate it. Mr. Columbus, thank you for your public service as well. Okay.
Thank you. I think all the questions have been asked. I'll simply thank you all for your willingness to serve. Mr. Columbus, I think you've heard it, but I'll lift it up again. I think one of the biggest issues for members is simply access and communication. And you've always been very communicative with my office. So I thank you for that. And so I will encourage you to continue being responsive because that does matter for members and for our ability to then communicate with our constituents. So thank you for that. And as already mentioned, given the political climate that we currently live in, given what is happening at the federal government, our ability as a city to double down on the protection of all genders is going to be critical, and so you all's work is going to be critical in that effort and doubling down on our efforts as a city to protect all of those. And so I thank you for your willingness to serve. If there's nothing else from members, we have exhausted the business of our pre-agenda, so we'll be adjourned.
Awesome.
We'll take a We'll take a 10-minute break before we resume our standing committee meeting. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We're adjourned.
Thank you for having
Won't you tell me? Save me. Won't you tell me?
Good morning and welcome to the Standing Committee's meeting for Wednesday, June 18th, 2025. All council meetings will be live streamed on the city's website, and for guest speakers, please do not turn your microphones off. Our first order of business is roll call. Will the clerk please take the roll? Can I please get a motion to waive the rules to allow for the start time at 10:35?
So moved. Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion is approved. Our next order of business is roll call. Will the clerk please take the roll?
Mr. Charland, Mr. Coghill.
Here.
Ms. Gross.
Here.
Mr. Lavelle. Here. Mr. Mosley.
Here.
Mrs. Cale Smith.
Here.
Mrs. Warwick. Mr. Wilson. Mrs. Strasburger, Chair.
Here.
6 members present.
Thank you. Our next order of business is public comment. I would like to remind all speakers that the rules of council state that comments are limited to matters of concern, official action, or deliberation which are or may be before city council. Profanity will not be permitted. Please state your name and neighborhood for the record. You will have 3 minutes to speak. We have no registered speakers, so any speakers who wish to speak can approach the podium.
Good morning. My name is Yvonne F. Brown. I live at 715 Mercer Street. That's at the Katie were Irvis tires. I wanted to explain about yesterday when I gave Mr. DeVale praises for being, I think, like the father of the year. And the reason why I say that is that my grandbaby had brought this paper home. This is during Black History Month. And she had brought this paper home, and she said, "This is Dr. Lavelle from City Council." I said, "He ain't no doctor. He's a councilman." So then she says, he's in this is the A-STEP program, wrote about him and his grandfather. But I said, he's just a councilman. I was explaining to Mr. Lavelle, with my granddaughter talking about a doctor, I think with him wearing the suit, a lot of black children don't realize that they don't just have to be a doctor or whatever, but with the suit, he's a businessman. But anyway, she was saying that the head of the program had said that I give him a hard time. And that's when when she said that, I was saying that when he came here, when Mel Good's son, Mel Good had been a news reporter during, like, I think in World War II, a black man that traveled around the world, and usually black men in the news you didn't see too many, but he was really light complected. At one time, color mean a whole lot, because even Lena Horne at one time passed for white, because if she was black, she couldn't sing in certain places. But anyway, when I fuss at him all the time, but when I found out that he has children, do you understand, a daughter and a son, that all the children like, they're smart and they give respect to everybody. That's what I said. I have to come because right don't wrong nobody. And if he has children that are that good, that everybody likes, and they treat everybody good, he's not as bad as I thought. And I thank him because they are our future. And he has raised, him and his wife, 2 children. And I got a chance to tell his father. I said, he didn't introduce you when he brought you down here. I said, but I want to tell you, you should be proud of your grandchildren and him. And I'm saying that because I truly believe we have to teach our children love. We have to teach our children respect. We have to teach our children how to treat each other. Because if we don't, they don't know. They see what's in the world, and we got a president now that I think he's taking us out the world backwards. My mother used to say the world was getting weaker and wiser. Because when I was born, babies, they had to bathe. My eyes were bathed for 2 weeks before I could see. But now they take the babies and put something in their eyes. And I just wanted to say, oh, and another thing. It was raining real bad, and I was walking home. And the man jumped out of the van, and he said, him and his wife, I guess his wife, anyway, they said, they seen that I was getting soaking wet, and they gave me this umbrella. And I was saying, that day, you know, there is a God. There is a God, and I believe there is in Jesus Christ and the Holy Spirit. Even though I may not act like it, I do know that there is a God.
Next speaker, please.
Hello, Cerise Taylor, the missing child, also known as Special Agent Sunshine. Yesterday I mentioned why when I come on this podium I share the word of God. I asked God why he called me special, and I was led to a devotional that told me there's 4 crowns, and the crown that I wear is the crown of glory for doing that. When I was a child living in Arlington Heights, the bookmobile came through our neighborhood, and one of the first books that I got was my first Bible. And it was beautiful, and it had the red letters and everything. And the scripture that I first encountered was from Matthew 4:4. And it says, man will not live on bread alone, but on every word that comes from the mouth of God. And as a child, I was curious. I wanted to know what God was saying, what he had to talk about. So I went right to the red letters. What did he say about this? What did he say about this? My inquisitivity started then as a child. And it has grown to me, literally, God putting me on this platform this year with not only you, but the world The title of my message today is Giving Our Best. It comes from Genesis 4:4, and it says, Abel, he also brought of the firstlings of his flock and of the fat thereof, and the Lord had respect unto Abel and to his offering. God honored Abel's offering more than Cain's because of his heart. And I think that's why he put the crown of glory on my head, because I have the heart to come here and encourage Lavelle to really come out and be who you are, Lavelle. Like, again, I respect the Pride community so much more because I get it now. Like, they came out and stood on who they are. And that's important. You have to love yourself. If you don't, then you hide who you are. And you pretend to be someone that you're not. And people see it. I also want to talk about Matthew 5:11. Blessed are you when people insult you, persecute you, and falsely say all kinds of evils against you because of me. Rejoice and be glad, because great is your reward in heaven. For in the same way they persecuted the prophets who were before you. I'm persecuted daily. That's why I wanted to know why I was so special. Because people really hate me. People want me dead because I have an inheritance. But again, what God has for me, it is for me. Nobody can take it. In Jesus' name, amen.
Thank you. Any further speakers? Any further speakers? Seeing no further speakers, we will now move on to the Standing Committee's agenda. We are going to take it a bit out of order today and start with the Land Use and Economic Development Committee, chaired by Councilman Wilson. New papers, Bill 1924.
Bill 1924, resolution providing for the designation as an historic structure under Title 11 of the Code of Ordinances that certain structure known as Vincentian Marion Manor, located at 2695 Winchester Drive in the 20th Ward, City of Pittsburgh.
Motion to hold for cablecast public hearing.
Second.
Discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor of holding Bill 19...
Can we,
It needs to be held for report and recommendation.
I just want to know if we can hold this for a little bit.
Sorry,
Yeah. Can we hold this for
I
about
need to
4 weeks?
it was the incorrect motion.
Can we hold it for 4 weeks?
Sorry, I just want to make,
We're working on it.
Councilman Wilson will withdraw his... Would you like to withdraw your motion? We have not yet voted on it.
Yes, I'd like to withdraw the motion.
Thank you.
I'll just alerted that this would need to be held for Historic Review Commission for report and recommendation. That will be the proper motion right now. Dial motion for report and recommendation.
Wait, I just want to make sure that we can hold it. Sean, do you know, can we hold it for?
Can we just second that and then we can hold?
Yeah.
If you want.
Yeah.
Is there a second?
Second.
Discussion? Seeing none,
Come to
all
the
those
table.
in favor of holding Bill...
Wait, I want to make a motion to, can we have a discussion? I'm sorry. Can you come to
Discussion.
the table? I'm sorry, Councilwoman. Sorry to make you walk over here with your bad.
Good morning. I'm Sean Carter, Legislative Projects Manager, City Council. I didn't hear your question, Council.
I just want to know, can I hold this for a couple of weeks, because we are trying to work through this. Myself, State Representative Deasy, Senator Fontana, and Bob Palmasina.
Well, the
With
Historic Review
development.
Commission can't even begin their process until council refers it to them. So if you wish to hold it,
How long does that take usually?
it depends on when they can schedule a hearing, because both the Historic Review Commission and the Planning Commission have to submit recommendations to City Council before City Council can act on a nomination.
Okay, so I want to hold it for,
But you're saying you want to hold it before sending it to the Historic Review
Yeah, it's
Commission?
my legislation, so I want to hold it for 2 weeks.
As
I'll
Councilwoman
hold for
Gross
2
says,
weeks.
that's council,
Thank
that's your
you.
prerogative.
Thank you.
So motion to hold for 2 weeks is the motion on the table. We have a second discussion. Seeing none, all those in favor of a 2-week hold on Bill 1924, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Bill will be held for 2 weeks. Bill 1925.
Bill 1925, ordinance amending and supplementing the Pittsburgh Code of Ordinances, Title 9, zoning, Article 8, review and enforcement, Chapter 922, Development Review Procedures, Section 922.01, General Requirements for All Procedures, by adding a new section, 922.01.e, Approval Deadlines.
Motion to send to Planning Commission for report and recommendation.
Second.
Discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor of sending Bill 1925 to Planning Commission for report and recommendation, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Affirmative recommendation to Planning Commission. Bill 1926.
Bill 1926, Ordinance Amending and Supplementing the Pittsburgh Code of Ordinances, Title 9, Zoning, Article 8, Review and Enforcement, Chapter 922, Development Review Procedures, Section 922.01, General Requirements for All Procedures, by requiring that the zoning administrator act to determine the completeness of all applications filed under the zoning code within 30 days of receipt.
Motion to send to Planning Commission for report and recommendation.
Second. Brief discussion.
Discussion?
Thank you. I just want to say that we have several pieces of legislation that we're holding and sending over for reviews, but in the meantime, there's some that are already on hold, and we are going to have a series of briefings regarding all those bills, because I want to make sure that we're all on the same page and we understand everything, even myself, understand any unintended consequences, and we're working through any concerns. That's it.
Thank you. Look forward to those briefings. To further discussion, Councilmember Warwick.
Yeah, for the, you know, the 30-day, you know, the review period, the required 30-day review period. Just two questions. One is, does the bill, sorry, and apologies for not having, but does the bill clarify what happens if the 30 days, if it goes over 30 days?
Do you want to answer? Yes, go ahead.
Councilwoman, under the proposed ordinance, the zoning administrator or the official charged with determining that an application is complete has 30 days upon receipt of the application to determine that everything that the zoning code requires in the application is contained within the application. If the zoning administrator determines that something's missing, then they must notify the applicant within 30 days in writing of the deficiencies.
Right.
Then when the applicant submits a revised application, then the zoning administrator has an additional 7 business days to determine if that solved the problem or notify the applicant again that something is still missing or incomplete.
Okay,
Then that will keep going until everything meets with the code.
Okay, because I recall in one of the many conversations, someone, and I don't remember who it was, if it was a commenter or if it was someone at the table, I don't remember, about like, if it's not done in a certain amount of time, it's considered approved.
Well, no, not approved. This one doesn't
Okay.
deem an application approved, only complete for purpose of review.
Okay,
So once the review process does not start until the zoning administrator determines that the application is complete. So
Okay.
that everything is contained within the application. If it needs a study, if it needs, other permits, that all of those things are within the application as filed. Once the application is deemed complete, then the review process starts. And for some approvals, it's 90 days. For
Got
some,
it.
it's 120 days. So that starts a whole second clock.
and then in drafting this, do we know if we're not meeting that 30 days, like if we're going over 30 days? I mean, is that something that's happening?
Well, there have been applications that sat in an incomplete status for a year and a half.
Okay, all right. And also, just, was there, I'm just wondering if there was a conversation with the zoning administrator and his team, just in terms of capacity, like, is that?
Councilwoman Cal Smith has reached out to the administration to set up those meetings.
Got it, okay, so we're gonna talk with them and make sure that that's not that there is enough person power to make sure that this
None
can
of this
be.
will happen when we're
Just in
here.
case someone
Let's
goes
clear
on
it.
vacation or whatever, is gone for 2 weeks, and, I don't know. Okay,
Yes.
okay, all right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I thought I saw Councilwoman Gross's hand the same time as, okay, so Councilwoman Gross followed by Councilperson Charland.
Thank you. I think it's the same thing. I'm just trying to get the gist of it. Again, as appreciative to the councilman to setting up the briefings and so we can hear kind of feedback from the people who have to implement the things we vote on. But the intent here in both 1925 and 1926 is to set up a section on approval deadlines.
Yes.
But then also to mandate the procedure for working with applicants
Yes.
when their applications are incomplete.
Yes.
Okay. So let's say someone, for like 1925, someone submits a complete application, but there is a new section that has application approval deadlines. So that even though when an application is a whole packet, meaning complete, right? They can't just sit unresponded to. And then the next one, 2026, says if your packet is incomplete, your application is not complete, there's some missing parts, then we have to keep nagging you.
Well, yes, it requires that the Department of City Planning put in writing, okay, you missed this study. You're required to do a traffic study, or you're required to do a curb cut, and we don't have your curb cut application on file from DOMI. We don't have the traffic information study on file for this. Your application is not complete. We cannot move to the review process until these things are complete, and they give that to the applicant in writing. Then the applicant has to go fix that and resubmit the application.
What if they don't?
Then it will never move out of the incomplete
So
status.
we just have to nag you once.
Yes,
We just have to have told you, hey, your application is incomplete, and maybe you've given up remodeling your kitchen and you're just not going to do it. You just give it. That wouldn't be a planning packet. That'd be a PLI. A planning packet is something like I'm building a 20-unit building.
Yes.
So maybe I've just decided not to, or something like that, or I don't know.
Whatever. Yeah,
My bank decided they're not going to lend me the money, or something like that.
Yes, once the Department of City Planning notifies the applicant in writing that the application is incomplete, the onus switches to the applicant to fix what the Department of City Planning says is missing before any further review of the application can occur.
But this would basically, and again, we'll get more deep discussion, but it'll say that hey, we required you, city planning, to have notified that applicant. And so if the city planning didn't notify that applicant, the bad is on city planning.
Correct.
Okay, got it. I can understand the importance of the intent here. Okay, that's all I have, Madam Chair. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilperson Charlin.
Yes, so I want to thank Councilman Kell Smith for bringing this forward. This is a problem that I think I've heard somewhat regularly of just people not knowing that their application, what was missing and things being sat on. So I guess to add on to Councilwoman Gross's question, though, when it is our bad for not notifying the applicant, in the current scenario, or also if this were to pass, what happens then? What if the zoning administrator, or I think the way this is written is someone in charge with checking completeness, if they don't notify the applicant, what then happens? If they don't follow this,
then the application would be deemed complete for purposes of review.
Okay.
But I would note that once it gets to the review process, the zoning code requires very specific things for approval.
Right.
So if something that was in the required to be in the application is missing, the application may be deemed complete because city planning failed to make notification within 30 days. But say, for instance, the planning commission still has to take into account that the thing is missing.
Yeah.
And so they will not be able to approve the thing until the thing is no longer missing.
Gotcha. So
it just moves it into the review process,
Right.
but the applicant was still not exempt from completing the application.
Okay. Cool. That's what I wanted to know there. Thank you for all your hard work on this.
You. Any further discussion? Councilwoman Kell Smith.
I just want to thank everyone for the patience. This is something new and different, and we are trying to address so many issues that we've heard so many times. I won't be here for this implementation because it won't happen until January, but I'm hoping that I leave the city in a better condition in terms of development than what we've been going through for all the years I've been here. But I do want to thank Sean Carter. He is amazing. He and Dan Friesen for working on this, and they're writing this, and the other people that helped them through this whole thing. But I want to thank them for this. But I do want to say that we are going to have, again, a series of briefings. I want everyone to understand fully what we're trying to accomplish here, and to make sure that this is not coming after people's jobs. This is not trying to stop it. This is trying to give council more of a say in what happens when things go wrong. We're the ones that get the phone calls. I want to make sure council has some say in what's happening in terms of development as well. So, and if there are issues, they can address it, themselves. So that's it for me. Thank you.
Thank you very much. All in favor of sending 1926 to the Planning Commission for report and recommendation, please indicate by saying aye. Aye. Affirmative recommendation. That brings us to the top of our agenda, to Finance and Law Committee, deferred paper, Bill 1892.
Bill 1892, resolution providing for the conveyance by the City of Pittsburgh of certain property to qualified city residents, subject to affordability restrictions at no cost to the city, items A through E, 1310 Pritchard Street, 2921 Merwin Avenue, 3408 Clearfield Street, 195 Steuben Street, and 454 Norton Street.
Is there a motion?
So moved.
I'd like to make a motion to hold.
Is there a second first?
But actually, can we have brief discussion?
Can we have a second first?
Yeah, second.
Thank you.
Can we have brief discussion first? Councilman, you had some concerns too, right? These are those properties.
Sure. What's the question?
I think
Interrogatory.
these are the properties that were going, instead of going to the land bank?
These are those properties.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just had some questions about the pilot program. I think that, hopefully we don't duplicate efforts at the land bank, because I think, we would do something very similar with these properties.
Yeah. Can the solicitor?
Councilwoman Kell Smith, would you like to call the Finance Director to the table?
Yes. And the solicitor, I think. Good morning, everyone. Thank you. Thank you. Councilman Wilson, do you want to ask questions, or do you want me?
Sure, I'm happy to ask questions.
Okay. Well, I just know that we talked briefly. Let me just say, in my office, I know there were little concerns, so I wanted to make sure we have a chance to get it cleared away.
Okay, yeah, I haven't been briefed on this program. I know it's not in my district, so it's not like you have to, but I was just curious about the pilot program, and I did have some conversations previously with some people that were working on this. I think this was like maybe even a year ago, and I had concerns then about just the duplication of similar actions, and so I'm just curious on what's going on here.
Good morning. I'm Jen Gula. I'm the City Finance Director and Treasurer. So to be clear, the legislation itself is just to sell the properties. And what's different is that we're not actually including an owner. Normally, when we submit them to you, we give you an owner and an end use. So the end use would be that they would be owner-occupied structures, and through this process that we attached as Appendix A, we won't yet have a buyer. So we're not actually approving the program per se, but approving the sale of the properties without an actual owner for now. The draft that I attached is basically an outline of what the program will be, and it's targeted to, individuals looking to make a start, buy a starter home, and as we all know, the cost of actually purchasing houses keeps increasing and is limiting some people to actually buying a first home. So we're just trying to provide them with another opportunity to do that. We have obviously structures that are falling down that we would like to get rid of, and hopefully there are potential buyers that would like to take them, rehab them, and live in them and help to grow your communities. There's no reason, I don't think, if the land bank has a program like that. I mean, all three entities, land bank, URA, and city, work together to dispose of properties and move them. So taking 5 of our structures and doing this, I don't think any way infringes on what the land bank has going on. And then sometimes it does behoove someone to purchase from the city instead of the land bank. I mean, we all work together. So I don't see that that would infringe on their abilities at all, ever. So, and we don't even know that it'll work. This is a pilot program. We want to try it out and be inventive about trying to move properties through our system and dispose of them and get them into hands of people that could use them, and keep growing the trust fund so that I can pay the people that work to sell the properties. So it's sort of like a win-win for everybody if it works.
Great.
If I could
I
just,
just have some.
if I could just continue, I'm Krisha Kubiak, City Solicitor. I think what we heard from people and from, including council people, is that there is a demand for us to keep moving these properties as much as possible. And certainly, I know the land bank has been focusing on certain areas. They've been working with the community development organizations, and a lot of their properties are being, need other financing and other, loan programs to go forward, understandably. This is kind of a different model, and it may not work. That's part of the reason we're doing 5, but we do believe these are lovely neighborhoods. And we also know that the neighbors have been clamoring for something to happen with these properties. I also think, as Councilman Coghill has talked about a lot, there's a lot of very handy people in the west and south of our city who really could take care of their own properties. And so we thought these 5 might give a set of people a chance to give a shot. The house will be inexpensive enough that they could also get a mortgage for fix-up costs, and that this just becomes another route to do it. The one big difference that the city's doing on these that is the big kind of game changer is that we've cleared the title on all of these properties. So before they'll be offered for sale, the titles will be cleared. So they should be able to close within 6 months. And that's the big change, honestly. That's the piece that I think I'm honestly most excited about. Because as opposed to someone wanting to go and with, wanting to buy one of our properties, but it still takes 2 years to acquire it. This way, they're bidding on a parcel that they know they can get in 6 months, and it's a little closer to a normal market condition. It's not a it's still being sold as is, but it at least gives the possibility of getting some of these parcels moving more. Yep. I don't believe also that the land bank has indicated any interest in these parcels itself, just because they haven't been looking at this neighborhood specifically.
I think that could be true, but the land bank would definitely be interested in that conversation to, be a part of the disposition process. I had a couple questions. One relates to just our rules of the city, and then I had some other questions on the specifics of the program and how we got to this place. So just in general, I'm hearing that you, in terms of the city, what we can do, I'm hearing that one of the things you said is that the property owner could, or the potential buyer could buy it at an affordable cost, I think maybe you said, or at a decent amount. And I'm just trying to understand how we can sell a property that's not how we could sell a property that wouldn't be to the highest bidder at the city.
We are still opening it up for open bids for a certain period of time, and we still will take the open bids, but our minimum cost is significantly less than the average cost of a parcel that's going to be going on right now. I don't know, Jen, if you want to talk a little bit more about how you set prices.
Actually, probably not different from how we actually set prices normally, and that's to do comparable sales. These specifically will want to make sure that we first and foremost reimburse ourselves for the quiet title costs. So just to be clear, when the city clears title to a property ahead of time, and there are some that we've quieted title to and maybe the sale didn't go through, but we own them still, we do what they call a sealed bid. So we set a minimum bid, and then we notify people that were potentially interested, other bidders, or open up a bid process, they mail in their bid starting at the lowest, and whoever makes the highest bid wins the property. So it's still going to the highest bidder. And in this case, it's still going to the highest bidder. We're just limiting the people that are able to actually bid on the properties based on the requirements in the program.
So just the requirements of the program, just you have to be a city resident already. You have to make less than 120% of the area median income. And there will be a deed restriction for owner occupied. So those are the three, that's the bucket of people that can do it, but that's what we expect. It still goes to the highest bidder, but we expect that because we're gonna set a lower minimum cost, we should, and again, pilot might not work, but we're trying to get more properties moving, because I think that's what we've heard from constituents that they want.
So I didn't realize that, okay, so you're putting rules around the, who can apply, and we can legally do that?
Yes.
We did it with the side yard program.
Okay. And someone who's making 120% AMI or less, do we know that they can get a loan at the bank to fix up the property?
We have checked with banks, and they have confirmed that they believe that it'll work. I mean, it all depends on a person's individual circumstances.
Yeah, so 120% AMI is, I don't know, I guess it depends on.
Depends on how many people you have in your household.
Yeah,
you know,
that,
family of four.
that, but also
it's not
where
an
we're selling the
instant.
property, right?
Pardon me?
That, and also where we're selling the property? Doesn't that change where? Maybe I'm not an
Where we're
expert
selling
on
the property?
area median income.
Oh, I think it's the Pittsburgh metropolitan area. So it's
Okay, so you're
Pittsburgh
using-
and a little further out
Okay.
too.
Yeah.
Actually
Gotcha.
includes other counties, I think, outside of Allegheny as
Okay.
well.
So what would that be?
What is the area median income at 120%?
Yeah, like what's an example?
Honestly, I've seen the chart, but I don't have those numbers now.
Yeah, it is. Hold on, let me see if I can grab it.
Yeah, I just know if city, who was all involved in spending time on this? Like, was it city law? Was it?
Law department, finance department.
Okay. Yeah, I know that there's
yeah.
a lot of things that I know.
All
that,
the real estate teams.
Okay, great. I'm just cautious of, city time being spent on something like this. Like, I'm just curious to know if it would work. We're kind of taking a chance here to see if it would work.
Right. Yeah,
Someone
that's why we were calling it
Yeah.
a pilot program.
Yeah.
Although I will tell you that
I just know that there's, I know the law department, every department, wants more staff so that they can get to what they, need to accomplish by the end of the day, and what, to make the city run properly. And I just know that there's, that's always a constraint. So I'm just cautious of whenever, we could, these are the conversations we're having at the land bank. Like, is it, the buy ready program we have, we pay a contractor to go in and clean out the property, patch a roof, get it what we call buyer ready. And I'm just wondering, is that being done here? And then furthermore, even whenever we get that, get the property ready, initially it was the properties are opened up to, just like you're considering individuals that would be homeowners. I'm sorry, they live at the property. I can't remember the term again.
Owner occupied.
Owner occupied. So they would be owner occupied. And if that doesn't work, then we're moving into the next phase, and we're having conversations about that on whether or not we would sell to then responsible contractors. And that's the natural evolution, I think, that might have to happen. Are you ready to do that?
Well, Councilman Wilson, I'll just, for your first part of your question, I do think when, I first got in this position, there was a real concern from the land bank because it was taking forever for the parcels to move through finance and through law. I do think we've made amazing strides. Right now, the law department, when it gets in a petition, it literally starts moving
right away. There is no backlog going on. There's almost no backlog going on in finance. Like, we are moving them as quickly as possible through the system. And I think Land Bank kind of has as many properties as they've asked for at this point. I don't think there's any that are in delay. If there are any, please let me know, because we certainly don't want to be holding up the Land Bank at all. But we have about 450 parcels with houses on them. And there's no way the Land Bank or even Rising Tide or other community organizations can handle all 450 of those through the different ways that they've got passed. And they each have like lovely, amazing programs that are really helping our city. So I don't want this. Our ideas have been that we would create yet another path just to make sure we could get through the 450. We would also we still keep getting new parcels in every single year. So we have to have a way to kind of move through this inventory faster, or else we'll never start to tackle the backlog that we have in the city. That's my position.
Yeah, so did you check out the property to see if there's a hole in the roof, or are we just leaving that up to the individual?
We did, and yes, some of them need extensive renovations, as do most of our properties. But we will hold an open house where people could come and view. They could bring their contractors, whoever it is that they need, to see what work needs to be done in order to make an informed decision and an informed bid.
Yeah.
So.
And they need different amounts of work depending on the parcel.
Yep.
So it sounds like definitely a pilot program. I definitely don't want to stop anyone from buying vacant abandoned property in the city. My only concern is that we would be creating a system to sell property like this at the city versus just trying to build out the land bank. So I know everyone's not unaware that there was a task force created. That's kind of unrelated to the building out the land bank, in a lot of ways. I just think that building out the land bank, like you saw, I think takes a commitment from, at least from this council. In the past year, we allocated 2 positions out in the 5-year plan so that we're making sure that there is staff at the land bank. And so that's been, a struggle to figure out, how we can do all of that work with 2 individuals, and now we're hiring a 3rd person. And so just that there are, like I said, I used the term duplication. I just caution any sort of efforts here that we could do with the land bank. And the reason why the state gave us the power to create entities like the land bank is because of this very issue that we're talking about. So why not build it out there versus what we're doing here? So
and I think the land
bank. So I appreciate
also,
the efforts. I'm just curious on how we might be able to work towards doing that all there.
Yeah. I'll say in other cities, I went to a Pennsylvania conference on blighted properties, and honestly, I was the only solicitor in the room that was talking about our own blighted properties. Everyone else was talking about the ones that were owned by other people besides the city. And the land bank is active in every single one of those, not every single one, but many of those communities. And I see the land bank, our land bank, doing that as well, because they're putting certain parcels into the treasurer's sale. So not all the parcels that they are working on are ones that are owned by the city. They're actually they're reaching out and getting other parcels. So there's still lots of work, I think, for the land bank to do. I just think we have a greater need. And for the 2 of us, our biggest concern are the ones that the city owns.
The need is great enough for, the city, whether it's the council, it's the administration, to stand up the land bank to literally do what we're talking about. So there's nothing preventing that. So
thank you.
Just hoping we can, work on that in the future. And then, did you consult the land bank at all in terms of like their program? Because we have a similar program and the struggles that we go through to try and do exactly what you're doing.
We certainly, I know they've had theirs kind of up and rolling because we've been really informed through I'm part of the vacant properties task force, and so is Jen, and so are many members of the city. So we've been discussing all of these parcels in lots of different ways, greenways, all these different things. This is just a little side piece that we've been working on.
And to be honest, the quiet title part is the biggest one for me. That's something that we've wanted to try for a number of years, even while Margaret Lanier was still treasurer. That was one of the items that she really thought that we should try is to quiet title ahead of time to kind of cut the actual sales process timing, down to nothing, or as close to nothing as it could be. And we never got that opportunity, so this sort of like marries a bunch of other things in with that. And if that's something too, maybe that's the only part that works, we don't know, but if it's viable, I think we'd like to try to do that more in order to move properties out quicker, so.
You working with the community on the process?
On quiet title?
Part of the.
No, I mean with the disposition process.
The whole thing, part of the reason Jen put this bill on the table, because we're not ready to sell properties at this point, is all of those rules. We want to give the community 90 days of notice so that they can comment on it. And these are still draft, so we will still make changes if community members, organizations, banks have any feedback on these rules. We're certainly happy to take a look at it. And we'll be making postings on that too.
Okay, just so I know if we're going forward, is it the solicitor office or at the real estate office will be the point person for the community?
Probably me.
Oh, you?
Yep.
The direct, okay. All right, thanks.
You're welcome.
Thank you. I think we have Councilperson Warwick next, followed by, Councilwoman Gross, followed by Councilman Coghill.
Yeah, thank you. This is interesting because I know I have there's the same desire in my district. I know that in Greater Hazelwood in particular, we have a very strong CDC. There's Rising Tide. There are lots of players in housing, and there is a feeling from a number of community members of this sort of notion that all the properties are getting bought up by organizations rather than by community members. So there's this desire. So I've had questions about this as well when it comes to city-owned properties, and in fact, I just got a list from real estate of all the city properties in Hazelwood so that I can share with the community what's for sale, whatever. I have had some conversations about this, with people, the CDCs, et cetera, with, far more, well, I have no experience in any of this. So, but some of the concerns that came up, which are concerns for me too, so I'm wondering if it has to be owner occupied once it's fixed. So I guess the biggest concern is that someone would buy a property. I love that clearing the title up front. That's a great idea, right? Getting it ready to sell. But that someone might buy a property without understanding quite how hard it is to rehab a property, and then getting themselves in sort of hot water with okay, they paid next to nothing for the property itself, but now they're sort of getting into $100,000+ just going to Lowe's and and that kind of thing. So is there, well, first of all, so is there like a review of the properties to make sure that we're doing this pilot with the best ones, the ones that are in the best shape?
So I don't know that, I think that's a loaded question because honestly, I can't tell you that any of our properties are in great shape unless we literally just took them in through treasure sale and they haven't yet started to, crumble. But so knowing that, I'm not going to say that these properties, they're going to take a lot of work.
It might be worth, again, this is just sort of through the conversations I've had in talking about doing this very thing, right? Is it might be worth, and maybe it's someone in DPW, I don't know, right? But having someone go, just so that the folks buying the properties are fully aware of if you buy this property, right, and you are going to rehab it to live in it, you should be prepared to do all these things, right? These are all the issues with the building, just so that you know up front, so that it is a good experience and like
Yeah. I mean, it certainly is a concern of ours, and I think that's a very valid concern. I will say we can't make any promises legally because they are being sold as is. So we need to make sure that people are aware and are savvy enough to be able to assess it. That is part of the reason we'll have the open house, so that people can go and kind of make the assessment. And Jen, they will have to like either put up the money for the sale, or they will have to go through a bank. And we expect that there is also some due diligence on the bank's part if they're giving them a rehab loan, purchase rehab loan, for the purchase. So whether or not they get that far in, we expect some of that. I will say we do have a reverter in the deed. So if they don't do anything with it, say they buy it and they just want to hold it for 5 years and then flip it, it will revert to us because they have to be either in it or they have to get approval from Jen to be working on it so that it just can't sit there. Because I think we've all heard about that as well, which is people, get a permit and then do nothing on the permit for years, right? So we have all of that built into this program so that it would revert back to us. We'll certainly warn people and things like that, but we will stay on top of these parcels to make sure that they are being improved.
And with the owner occupied, I mean, again, this is just sort of that comes from, is that, when you're looking at that AMI, the list just goes to, that I have from the URA, just goes to 115. But I wonder if that might be like a high, a little bit of a high bar that they have to live in it afterwards. I don't know. I mean, I guess you can try.
Yeah.
Right.
And we have had lots of conversations about, like, there were people who wanted to set it at 80. There were people that didn't want to have an AMI listing on it at all. We were trying to find some level of making this into the affordable housing, especially in the bidding side of it all, right?
Yeah.
If you suddenly open it up, then the concern is, does this sell for more than, it would normally? So I don't know if we picked right, but I guess that's the goal of the pilot.
I guess we'll find out.
I guess like the one thing just kind of, because I love the idea and I've heard this floated many times, but I would also want to see someone with a certain amount of expertise who sits down with the potential, but like, I wouldn't want to see a single mom be like, like her uncle tells her he's going to help her out and do this thing, you know what I mean? And then she is like, okay, great. And like, now she's saddled with a structure and she doesn't have the support. I mean, I'm being a little gendered here but that the person buying it really is eyes wide open and clear about what it takes to rehab a property in general and also to rehab the specific property that they're looking at. That's all.
Yeah. That's a very good point.
Anyway, that's all for me. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilwoman Gross.
Thank you, directors. I'm really excited about this program, and congratulations to Councilwoman Cale Smith for being able to move these properties in her district. I'm definitely supportive. On the topic of kind of like what is the most efficient way for the city council to move the 10,000 treasurer sale properties that it's been trying to move faster and more of, and bring that 10,000 properties down, because that's way too much for us to be sitting on, right? Especially when people need affordable housing. I think it's additive, right? This is not a competition. We don't want real estate and law to be the bottleneck, which is what we had for, and when we started this debate in 2014. And so we added a land bank so there would be two ways to get properties moving. And so when we created the land bank, we didn't mean to turn off the real estate department, right? And then have the land bank be a bottleneck, right? So we have now two ways. And in fact, the real estate department has been doing a great job with the market rate selling, properties are more desirable more people want to buy them. They're fetching higher and higher prices,
Yeah,
and
they
that's
are.
been a great way for us to actually have the trust. What's it called again?
The three taxing bodies trust
The
fund.
three taxing bodies trust fund actually have money in it. 10 years ago, council had to put general fund money into the 3TB because it didn't generate any money at all. And now it's up to like $1 million last time I
It's
checked.
over $1
something
million.
like that. Yeah.
Yeah.
And so that helps us move even more because we can add staff. We're paying for the real estate attorney out of that, something like that, right? So there's more capacity, and that is good. Also, I want to be said in this discussion, so fact check me here. The last time I looked at the 10,000 properties that had the name City of Pittsburgh on the deed, there was like 300 properties with structures.
Yep.
Okay, so again, I don't want everyone thinking there's 10,000 houses sitting out there.
No.
There's 300, and both the land bank are moving them, and now you're going to move, how many are here, 5? Right, and so you're going to move 5, and so that's good, and so that we only have 300 that are, and they're rapidly disintegrating, right? And so we want both entities to move these properties. So I think this is great for Councilwoman McHale's district. These are 5 properties in her district. So again, I'm really supportive. Also, since there are only 300, and we are trying to move them, do as much as we can, even in a handful of like 5 here and 5 there that are restricted for affordability, I think this is also a perfect marriage of mission. So that's also good. But, and then we have to turn our attention to the 9,700 vacant lots. Right. And so, we're moving those too, but that's, where we have structures. Let's get them out the door to match them to the right steward, owner, whatever, who, before we let them fall down entirely. Because there have been many that have fallen down. And those cost us money for demolition and cleanup and all that kind of stuff. So congratulations. Thank you for your work. That's all I have, Madam Chair.
Thank you. I think we had Councilman Coghill next.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, ladies. I appreciate you being here. I welcome this, I will tell you. As promising as the land bank seems to be, we haven't identified long-term funding for them. And as much as Sally promises she's going to get in my district, I haven't seen her there. There's not one house, not one parcel has been moved in my district, and I think Councilwoman McHale-Smith's as well. So So I welcome this. I really do. I think it's great. I think it's, creative, think outside the box, get these things moving. I just have a couple questions as to how did you clear these titles with the taxing bodies without the painstaking effort that we always had to go through?
I will say we started with a much bigger group. We did, the law department hired a title company to do this, and we got a good discount because we were doing more than we did a number of them, and then we eliminated the ones that have very difficult titles to clear.
Right.
So the nice part about this is unlike when people just come to Jen's list and they're like, I want this one, and then we find out that this title is so complicated and takes so long, and there's people have passed and all that kind of stuff. We picked the ones that were the easiest to clear. It still took us 6 to 8 months, but at least the titles are, we know that these titles are clear and good. And
I imagine they're all back on taxes.
They all were.
So
They
you
all
had
were.
to
They
go
were all
to
came
the
to
school
us through the
district, you had to
treasurer's
go to the county and square that away with them in these cases. For these
Well,
five.
yes, but they're already ones that we took in treasurer's sale, and the treasurer actually is the trustee for the parcels. So based on the agreement that we have with the other taxing bodies, we do this. But then the money actually goes back into the trust fund to help.
Right.
And at some point, when it's really healthy, we all get to profit share. We're not there yet, but if we keep doing what we're doing, eventually it'll happen and it'll be operating the way it's actually supposed to work.
Right. And to put it simply, this is like a as is.
Yeah.
You come, there's no stabilization,
Nope.
there's no repairing the roof. It's as is, but we are going to have a walkthrough.
Yep.
And in a walkthrough, you'll be allowed to go up and down wherever throughout the home.
Yep.
Without signing a waiver or anything like that. I mean, it's not like falling down that bad, obviously.
We'll make sure you're not in
Right.
places that are not
Got it.
safe to
Got
be.
it. Yeah,
So,
right. And as you said, I, as a contractor, I know what I see, but what I don't see is the sewage and things of that nature. So are we going to have any indication as to that they have to replace the sewer line or not? Or again, is it as is what you see and what you don't
as we
see?
see, we do welcome if you want to bring a home inspector along with you or
Yeah,
any of that kind of
right,
stuff, or
right.
if you wanted to, bring your camera to
Yeah, is that right?
to
So
look
so
at the
on the
sewer.
open houses all day,
all day.
and we could bring our own inspector.
You could bring whatever you wanted to,
We could actually make sure that when we do the public release that we include that information. So if someone
Good.
wants
Yeah.
to bring
Great
a
idea.
contractor with
Well,
them
that's
or an
what we asked,
inspector,
Jen,
that
right.
they are
So
absolutely
I'm permitted to
can.
go on the roof, providing you have the proper insurance. You have a contractor, you can go on the roof, you could put a camera down, whatever, just do your own full inspection that day.
Just
How
so
many-
you know, because
yeah.
I've actually done this, not through the city, obviously, but I mean, my first home I bought for $10,000 and it was vacant for 2 years.
Right.
And I lived in 3 rooms and we demolished whatever rooms we weren't living in and
Sure.
built it back up. But that gave me equity, which I then
Absolutely.
turned into a larger home that I didn't have to do anything to, right? So these are the types of people that we're targeting that need to do that.
I love it.
Because the market now is so.
This is
I mean,
affordable
people
housing.
come in with cash offers and they waive doing inspections in order to walk out with a house because
So-
the market is that hot, and it's eliminating people that were like me from actually purchasing a home.
See, this is to me a form of affordable housing, right?
Right.
If you have a handy person, or if you're willing to put some sweat equity into it, or live in timbers until you get it fixed, like you did, Jen, and I
right,
did
and
also
being-
at times.
And being a contractor, you also know that if somebody hasn't been living in a
Right.
home for a while, the sewer system,
Yeah,
obviously.
right. You pretty much better go in there with the thought
Yep.
that, unless you inspect it then, which that would be one key thing, that and the roof really to inspect. Other than that, I feel like, you get what you see, basically. So no, I really welcome it. And how do you come up with the minimum price? So you're going to put a minimum bid, basically, in front of, and this will be posted somewhere, I guess, on.
Yeah, we'll post it.
Okay. So the minimum bid will be, let's say, $15,000. Okay. How do you do that without knowing what's underneath it or what's on top? Just by the, I mean, you certainly don't start pricing it at what the properties around it are going for.
No.
So
Well, first of all, I take a look at if we have any outstanding charges. So maybe there was a clean and lien or a
Right.
demolition or some other, like a
Title
title
costs.
costs,
Right,
obviously, or
right.
treasure sale costs that we might want to recoup as part of that. And saying demolition is
Yeah.
one thing. Sometimes recouping the whole entire amount isn't feasible
Right.
because
Right.
somebody could have paid, they could have charged someone a $50,000 demolition, but the house is no longer worth that.
Right.
So we may look to recoup a portion
Got it.
of what those things would have been owed to the city, which could end up being, based on the current condition of the home, just that, right? And that would be the starting bid.
Right.
In other cases, if it's maybe in better condition, we would look at similar properties that sold, but sold in the same condition
yeah,
as that one. So
Right.
I'm not going to put it up against something that sold down the
Right.
street for $240,000
Right.
when one in equal condition of equal size and rooms
It's
sold
fair,
for
it's
25,
fair to say these
right?
are going to be a lot less expensive than what's on the market, and they're going to be fixer-uppers. To what degree, that's for you to determine, and that's why it's like as is. And if you take a chance, you take the chance.
That's it.
So, and real estate, you basically aren't going to lose. I mean, you might bite off more than you can chew there, but ultimately, if you're in the market for a home, providing we price it at a minimum, what it should be. I don't think we're going to have people screaming and crying because they lost money on it.
No.
And if they do, that's
Well,
that's what this is.
The payoff for us is once somebody actually completes the renovation of a home, it could increase the assessed value of the home, which then ends up turning into tax revenue for
Absolutely.
us.
Absolutely.
So selling something for $10,000 may seem like we're not making a whole lot of profit, and we may not at the initial onset, but later down the line, we
Right.
will see the revenue
Right.
come through in
Right,
taxes.
Jen. It's not about the sales price.
Right.
If you get a little bit of money to put in the, what
Plus-
was it, account
3TV.
again?
Plus,
Yeah,
it's not an
3TV, great.
eyesore in your neighborhood, and you
Abs-
have
you know
residents
what?
that hopefully
Yeah.
turn 5 years into 10 years or 20 years,
Yeah,
right?
Absolutely. It's about getting it back on the tax roll,
Yep.
right? And then if that home is then assessed at, if we sell for 10, 5 years from now, it's assessed at 200,000, and obviously you know that's where the real money is.
Right.
I mean, really, not so much in the
Well,
sale of
plus
the property for
the
these.
buyer gets equity, right?
Right.
And so now that they own a property, maybe they actually get a better loan in order to fix it up because now they actually have something that's of value
Right,
to put
right,
against what they're
right.
borrowing.
Right. I love it. When does it go up? I mean, when?
So if we're posting now, we have 90 days for people to comment on it, and then we will hopefully have them out in September.
Okay, so Tuesday, providing all goes well, we approve it, and then you go right to work on these 5 properties. Can I add a property?
You can look at it, but we need to go back and check the title report.
Yeah, right. Well,
But
it's the
if-
city owned.
if-
I know it's owned by the
If
city.
I think that's not a
But
problem.
check the title as to like
Look,
how
if
much
we check
money.
the
Yeah,
prop,
right,
we'll
right,
check the
right.
title to see how
I would love
complicated
to
this
add
bill
one
is.
property. It's right by the T, the red line. It's been sitting there forever. I don't know
Yeah,
why.
happy to.
I've never been in it. I've never, just look at it from the outside. It's a mess. It's a hot mess. But I would think that where it's at, it's worth something. And I would love for that to be put on there. And even if somebody buys it with the idea to demo it, whatever. It's if it's priced right.
Yeah.
So you'll have time to put this one and another one because I don't have a whole lot in my district.
We're happy to put it in, and I think we can go forward with the sale whenever they're ready, but that wouldn't be a problem.
I hope it's successful. I really do
So-
because I feel like this is a good way for me to move city-owned or blighted properties in my district. So I feel like this is just what I've been waiting for, honestly.
And I know in talking to Councilwoman Kale Smith, it's like, you have certain ones that your neighbors really are paying attention to and that, and that have been like, kind of a complaint from them. And I know when you drive past that one house on your block sometimes,
Right.
like it's every single day that you're thinking
It's
of
the
it.
people
so-
living next to it, the people living across from it, the people come through.
Yeah.
What an eyesore, and everybody's value goes down because of it, and
Right.
it's unhealthy and it's unsafe, and I can go on and on and on, right? But
Yes.
no, I look forward to it. I have at least one property I would like to add. When is
Please.
my deadline to get you that property? so you can
Whenever
look
you
into
get it, we'll
okay,
start
good
looking
deal,
at
good
it.
deal. Okay, thanks a lot. I appreciate your work. I hope and I think it's going to be successful. So we'll
Thank
see.
you, Councilman.
Yep.
Fingers crossed.
Thank you. Councilman Mosley, first round, and then we'll move to second round. I know Councilwoman Kale Smith.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you for being here today. I think I just have, one question, as I was, listening to all the thoughtful questions and discussion, over this and thinking about really adding this to the land recycling ecosystem, if you will. Are there particular scenarios, just to follow up a little bit on Councilman Wilson's line of questioning, would there be certain scenarios where this particular proposed process would be more advantageous than the land bank and vice versa, where you would look at a particular scenario or dynamic or neighborhood landscape to say, okay, this would be more appropriate to use the process that we're proposing today, and then another scenario, it might be more advantageous to use the land bank process?
I'll say we have been always paying attention to when the community groups are saying, we have a plan for this block or this area, and they say, we have an interest in these, and we're going to be able to get to them right away. The issue always comes to everybody's got funding and capacity issues, so sometimes they sit out there for a long time. I say whenever and what happens is we have these kind of one-off properties that are kind of not part of anyone's plan, and there hasn't been a discussion with the community group, or there isn't a community group over there. Those seem the best for us. Certainly in Councilwoman Kale Smith, these are lovely neighborhoods. There's lots of lovely neighborhoods, but I think when you've got one house out of like 20 that we own, that becomes a bigger issue. And then say you have a whole block where people are going to come in and really do a full affordable housing development that is more likely to attract other funding and more likely to have the economies of scale that really help the community groups that are doing that. So that's been my awareness. There's also, for the community groups, I think there's some of the times they're taking a couple of houses, some of them they're doing affordable, some of them they're doing market rate in order to afford the affordable. And those market rates have to have a differential that really works. Some of these neighborhoods, you're never going to sell a house for $700,000, like ever, no matter how nice it is, right? So that's these houses that we're looking at have a different. I don't think they would fit quite as well for that financial model.
And I think my final question is to follow up on Councilwoman Warwick, because I hear definitely more than once or twice it's been ongoing conversation from community members who feel like particularly with the land bank, that community development corporations and nonprofit organizations with expertise, like Rising Tide, who do fantastic work, just have a level of expertise where they can navigate that process. At least what I'm gleaning, from this conversation, that this is more for, from what we hear, I hear the same. I get the same questions you get, Councilwoman Warwick. That would be more appropriate for like an individual.
Yes, I mean that's what we're trying to target.
This is a better fit for that.
And I will say, I think, especially with the housing market the way they've been, I think there's been a lot of younger people who have been socking away their money, getting ready for the housing rates to drop or so on and so forth. And they've been renting for years longer than we had to rent for, or at least I had to rent for back when I could buy a house for $75,000. And those days are gone, So I think there is more kind of a demand for people who are really just looking for a way to get into the housing market.
And has I think this is truly my final question. Have there been conversations, at the task force about how with this on the table, these potential offerings can fit into a much larger, land recycling ecosystem, so that this is. The land bank's strong area. This would be this program's strong area, and then even thinking about there's other steps that we need to take to tackle.
I will say
this challenge.
We were hoping to see how this pilot works, because maybe it doesn't become a piece of it. Maybe we do it and we realize we just have 5 blighted properties that continue to be 5 blighted properties, and that would certainly be a concern. So I want to make sure that we have some sort of data. I always am amazed that once you actually roll out one of these programs, things happen that you're like, oh, I didn't realize. And so we have to change this piece of it. I will say the title clearing went much better than we expected. So that part of it, I think we can somehow fit into whatever programs people have in the future. Right. But, and different parts of it, and possibly even for the community groups. Right. It might be easier for that kind of stuff to roll through us. But we'll see what the pilot program
so this is
delivers.
Much more of like a demonstration project versus the launch of a comprehensive city program.
Yes.
Right.
All right. Well, thank you for your time.
Thank you,
Madam Chair.
Thank you. Second round, we have Councilwoman Cale Smith, followed by Councilman Wilson, followed by Councilwoman Gross.
Thank you. This is a really long meeting, and I apologize, but I wanted to make sure we had some clarity on what was happening here. But I do want to say that I'm glad that you were able to answer Councilman Wilson's concerns. And I want to thank you both for working on this program, because the land bank did have one property, and it was the one that I had taken. It's a long story, and I don't know that Sally knew the whole background behind, about the property. And it was 6 Boggs Avenue, and I had taken it from the CDC because they were trying to sell. Residents reported they were trying to sell it to a developer without a public process. On and on. So I took it from them, put it back, and somebody said put it in the URA, and they would have a community process. And they were supposed to have the community process, and they suggested moving it to the land bank, which we did, and they ended up giving it right back to the CDC, but for a food pantry. But that, it's been almost a year, and they're still trying to raise money for the food pantry. And there was a person who wanted to buy it, who owns a Steel Mill Saloon, who would have fixed it up already and been done with it. But the food pantry does need a home, but I would have worked with them on a better location. So that's why when she first moved the property, I was like, I almost had a fit. I found out on a Friday night at 7:30 at night. But since then, we've had a good relationship. I want to move land bank property And I did just give Sally a list of properties, but it was a group of properties. And I feel like that's an appropriate use for the land bank is when I want to hopefully spur some type of development. And for these types of properties, if you look, I mean, this one, I have a photo, I don't know if you can see it, but this is the Steuben Street property. You can't even see it. You can't even see the house behind the trees and everything that's there. But all around that area is investment. The woman across the street's purchasing homes, renovating them, fixing them. I'm sure she'll probably be eager to buy property there. And people just sent me an email and asked if we could do something with Steuben Street because they're starting to see some. So I want to thank you for this because this one property on Merwin Street, I think I got complaints about Merwin Street when I first got here into office. And when I was first into office, there were over 400 homes. I think a lot of people don't remember the mortgage foreclosure crisis hit the city of Pittsburgh so hard. And back then there was over 400 homes in Sheridan, one census tract in Sheridan. The other part is Sheridan, they call it the Upper St. Sheridan, is not in that census tract. And their homes are beautifully maintained, and it's where a lot of our more affluent employees live in the city. And I think that seeing that right below you, the struggle is so real, and I would love to see some of these people finally get some results here. So I'm hoping that this works. I think it sounds like it's going to work. I know that people are probably going to bid on some of those properties, as I mentioned, Steuben Street, probably rather quickly. But I do want to say that we don't have any CDCs in District 2 except for the MWCDC, which is struggling right now to even exist. And there's been talk of them merging with other people. I don't want that. What I want them to do is if we could try to work together to expand them across District 2 and have one CDC for our whole area. But there's not even a wish to do that right now from the West End doesn't want them and the Mount wants to focus on the Mount because they're starting to get a lot of issues. So I want to thank you for all that because I think that these properties are in areas where the Mounts had a lot of development and property values are going up so high in both Sheridan and Mount Washington. And when I see homes that couldn't even sell in Sheridan now going for hundreds of thousands of dollars, it's shocking to me. And so I want to keep some affordability in our district because we do have the most affordable district still. So and they said that we actually need market rate to stabilize our homes, our areas. But I would like to still make sure we're doing our balancing work and keeping some affordability there. So I appreciate this effort. And I just wanted to make sure it was legal. That's all I cared about. And since you're saying it is, and Dan Friesen said it was, I trust you both. But I do want to say, I don't know if you know Paul Getnick. He was an attorney. He teaches law at Duquesne University, lives in Mount Washington, and he's offered before to come give his team of students to help clear titles. And so I would love I've given the offer before to other people. No one's ever
I
followed
would
up
love
on.
to talk to him.
So I will give you his information because if you can get them to clear titles faster and for free, and yet it's teaching students, I just think why aren't we taking advantage of this? And I like that there's an opportunity to do the walkthrough because I think currently that's not always the case. People just buy and not know. But I would like to see what Councilwoman Warwick was saying about people making sure that they have the ability to fix up the homes. I would like to see us also connect people with the Housing Opportunity Fund and do that type of work so that we're making sure that if people need help, they're getting the help. And it's, it's not just sitting, the property's not just sitting there. And I did just move, I think it was 10 properties to the land bank that was owned by one hoarder in the city of Pittsburgh, and she passed away recently, and all her properties are sitting there. So it would be good to see the land bank do something with those properties as well. The last thing I will say is that I do want to know if we can have some agreements that in the interim, before the home is actually in somebody's hands, could we have an agreement where they can fix up the properties? Because I do have one now on my street actually, and the guy asked, he lives across the street from it, asked it, and I was hesitant to put it in through the land bank, and I did, or through the treasurer sale, but I did because a neighbor was going to buy and take care of it, and I thought, okay, good, but he's been trying to fix it, cut the grass, fix the roof, do those things.
We can and do access agreements all the time for people if we know that they're going to be the purchaser.
Yeah.
So we're
he
happy
has
to
all
do
the paperwork,
that.
receipts, everything.
We're happy to take care of that.
I would just like to see it not look like an eyesore in the community. Okay, I'll get you his information.
Do you want to email it to me?
Yeah, I'll email it to you. Yeah, I'll give you his phone number on the microphone here. Anyway, but I want to thank you all for thinking of District 2 and coming up with a program that's I think is going to help in a lot of places, and I'm eager. I'm so excited to tell the people on Merwin that you're doing something on that street, because they wait so long. And Norton Street, there's just some of these streets, Pritchard Street. Donnie Schultz from the American Legion has been complaining about this house for, I can't even tell you how long.
Well, Councilwoman, I was just so impressed because we came to you with this list and you instantly knew every single house we were talking about without having to refer to a map or to Google Maps or anything. She just knew all of the issues in her district so well, and I was blown away by your depth of understanding. So I hope
that wasn't
I hope
for good reasons. That's because I got a lot of complaints. but I'm happy to have this. So thank you so much for your work on this. Thank you both so
You're
much.
welcome. Thank you. I think we have Councilwoman Gross, followed by Councilman Wilson.
Thank you. I'll keep it very brief. I just, I heard in some of the comments that some of these neighborhoods would never, ever, ever sell a house for $700,000, and I'll just have to introduce you to some people from Lawrenceville.
Wow.
Right?
Yeah.
Where 15 years ago, which is not a very long time.
Yep.
Yeah.
The
No,
problem
it's great.
that there was, drug alley, active drug sales during the day, and that the community group was focused on chasing people down the street, and knock on wood, nobody was hurt. Really, really active against crime, and also that there were just far too many vacant and abandoned properties and treasure sale properties was the problem. And I could show you the Zillow listings. And so never say never. So I just want a word of warning also to my fellow colleagues, right? That when the market comes for your neighborhood, it comes so fast, it's too late. And that's why we do this proactive work, because it's like the Eye of Sauron, if you know the Lord of the Rings references, right? When it comes to you, you barely stand a chance. And so that's why we're trying to put policies in place in advance. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councilman Wilson.
I had a couple questions. Sorry, I don't have a couple questions. I think I have 4. People love doing that. I got one question, then I have 10. I was just listening to this and just thinking back to the questions that I had asked. So something that the land bank took on was to clean out the property so that you can see what's going on the property. And I'm just wondering, like, you said that you weren't going to do that. And so has anyone opened the doors to these properties yet?
I don't believe so.
Okay. Yeah, that was one of the barriers that we saw at the land bank, to go in the property to see, what we're dealing with. But we pay a contractor to go in and clean it out. So I would, properties aren't in my district, but if you were to come to me with a pilot program, I would just want to make sure that if there's an open house, people aren't seeing something too crazy inside and can see the walls, and a lot of these houses are filled with a lot of junk.
Point taken. So we'll have to open them up and inspect and see at least if they aren't full of junk. I know that we did send land care out to start clearing them away, but we can have them look inside.
Yeah. I know that we visited some properties. They didn't have any floors in them. So hopefully,
I've got better
there are some, when I hear the term open house, I guess
sometimes it literally is an open house.
I get worried. I get worried a little bit, but that just brings me to this, how you'll be in that process, how you'll be prioritizing owner occupants.
How will we?
Yeah, that's what you said
It's
the
gonna
program
be-
was for, owner occupants.
Yes.
The highest they can make is 120% MI. So I was just wondering, how would you prioritize
We
owner
don't.
occupants?
We're not prioritizing.
Okay.
It's a bidding process once it's open. So
Oh.
there's a minimum bid, but then it's an open bid process.
Right. The caveat, once we sell it, is that there'll be something in the deed that says they need to occupy
And they'll know
the
that up front?
house.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. And then just some mechanics of it, how would you verify the income?
They would have to actually submit information to the finance department, and then we would check it similarly to what we do for something like Act 77. I mean, we have other things that are based on income. And they would also have to provide us proof that they actually live in the city. So we would need to see documentation there too.
Or they would have to live in the city?
Yes. They have to be city residents, current city residents.
Interesting. They would have to be current city residents that make 120% AMI. So like someone that's in a position. Okay. Any reason for that? And like once again, these properties aren't in my district, but if this program does come to my district, I'm curious what the reasoning is for not allowing someone who makes 120% AMI to move into the city.
You know, it's interesting. A lot of times people have asked us about benefits for city resident or city employees because city employee, you know, we require them to have city residency, but we can't really do that. That's improper for us just to be able to sell these houses just to city employees, but city employees would all be possible, and I think it's also, it makes it a lot easier for us to confirm all of these things as well. So we have a lot easier ability to make sure that they are city residents and to confirm their salaries if they're part of the
city. So if the
city.
properties don't sell, does the criteria become more lenient, or
If the properties don't sell, then they're going to go back into the normal way that the director of finance already sells them, which
Right.
we'll put them on there and they'll go through the normal process.
So you just
but the
default
title
back, you
will-
just default back to.
Right.
I understand.
But the title will actually, it should go faster because the title would actually already been quieted.
Yeah.
Okay. The other question I had was just, at the very least, why wouldn't we do a double closing with the land bank?
Why wouldn't we?
Yeah.
I don't think we actually ever even considered that necessarily, but
Okay.
I mean, I don't know what the benefits would be to actually doing that.
Okay. Yeah, we do that with other entities. So just, you know,
I mean,
maybe that's a good avenue for us to.
Do you know what the benefit would be of doing a double? That to me seems like it would just incur additional costs.
I mean, we'd have to.
Or
There's
time.
different reasons for different, you know, entities. So we could see what the advantage is for the city if you know, I know you all are open to talking, so we can talk about that then. But I mean, I know it might be a little different since it sounds like you all are taking on the whole vetting process.
And again, we're happy to consider anything that the 90 days, if anybody has any input, we're happy to consider it.
Okay. All right,
Before we
thanks.
come up with the final program rules.
And maybe if it works, but maybe that makes the program even better. If we decide to continue it, then maybe it's something we consider, you know, for the next round if there is one.
Okay.
So.
All right, thanks.
Thank you. Final question, I believe. Councilman Coghill.
Thank you. Just one quick question. So I didn't realize, but so you have to be a city resident to bid. Great. Because one concern I had was these out-of-town LLCs that are buying up you know, multiple properties everywhere, so that helps eliminate that. How about LLCs in general,
No.
a local LLC? You're not going to sell to LLCs?
No.
Okay, beautiful. No,
Individuals.
good, great.
Yep.
You say they have to occupy. So if somebody buys that home, you mean they personally have to occupy and live there? They can't buy it as a investment?
No, it's for their own.
So this is for their
for
use?
5 years.
So they have to live there for 5 years.
Mhm.
But they might not even get it repaired in time for 5 years. But 5 years from the date, whether they're just working on it, but you're saying
So
they have to
live
actually
it-
physically live there.
They
for
live there
5
within
years.
5 years. If they cannot live in it because it's not
Within 5 years.
habitable, no,
Within
they have
5
to.
years.
It is supposed to be owner occupied for the entire
5
period of
years.
time. If they cannot live in it because they are in the middle of renovations, then they have conversations with the director of finance who can
Okay.
excuse them from living there for some period of time. But then we'll have a little more oversight on the rehab process.
Okay, so if somebody buys a home and it takes them 3 years to get it to where they can move in, which in many of the cases I'm sure it's going to be like that, that clock starts after they move in, or that clock starts when they purchase it, the 5 year?
I don't know if we've, I
think-
think it's up to the director of finance, depending on how long.
Right.
I mean, I
If they
understand.
said I can't, if they said I'm rehabbing this house and it's not livable,
Right.
and it won't be livable until the rehab is complete, at 3 years,
Mhm.
then they could actually request and I could grant them a waiver for that period of time. But then the clock would start after the rehab and it was livable, and they would have to stay there for 5 years.
Right.
Yeah.
So there's no requirement for them to move right in simply because of the,
There is a requirement because
There
they'll
is.
have to talk to the director of finance to get that waiver.
oh. Okay, so you're assuming people are going to hopefully move right in, which I think that's
It's gonna be
not
very
gonna
dependent
be
on the
accurate
house.
at all. You
It's
know,
gonna-
I would think
It depends on
yeah.
each individual.
Unless they're willing to
property.
live like you did, John, and me as well, you know, at
Well,
times, and while we're
To be honest, sometimes
Yeah.
look.
You're
to
there
be
all the
honest,
time,
sometimes
so-
that is your option, right?
I
mean,
understand, right, I
and
understand, right.
just to let you know, to kind of build on what Krisha said, at the time that I bought this house, I was actually an employee of the city of Pittsburgh.
Right.
I worked for the finance department as a cashier and did not make $30,000 a year.
right.
So for me, this was my option.
Right, right.
And I'm assuming that there are an awful lot of other people in the same boat. In fact, I know of one personally, and now my $10,000 home is now like $30,000 to $35,000. So the starting,
Right, right.
like for one in my equal condition,
Yeah.
right? Now, granted, I didn't have holes in my roof. It was livable. I could be in there. I just gutted it. It needed extensive work,
Right.
and that's what I did.
Right.
And so I'm assuming there are a lot of other people that are looking for those types of options
Right.
that are younger.
Well, that's what makes
that
it
need-
affordable, right? I
That's
mean,
exactly right. And
you know,
sometimes the sweat
again, if
equity
you're-
pays off,
You
you
better
know?
believe it, right? Absolutely.
Right.
So, okay, so just so I'm clear again, the 5-year occupation that we're requiring starts when they move in. Whether they move into a shack or whether they complete it after 4 years and it's finally finished after 4 years, then it's 5 years from that period.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay, got
Yeah.
it, got it.
Yep.
Okay, beautiful. I honestly feel, again, this is a form of affordable housing. This is like outside the box.
Yep.
Not us dumping truckloads of money into affordable housing. This is actually giving people the opportunity to have a little sweat equity and to buy a home at a really good rate. And I honestly feel, and I hope this is successful, because I want you operating in my district as Councilman Kill Smith does. I feel like Sally has her hands full everywhere else, or, you know, whether, I don't know where else, but she's not my district, I can tell you that. So I want this in my district, okay?
That'd be great.
And I got that address coming up for you, okay?
Happy to
Thank
do
you.
it.
All right,
Thank you.
appreciate it.
Thank you very much. Council President Lavelle.
Thank you. Thank you. I'll be very brief. I've long wanted to figure out a way to do something similar with this for city employees. And I've run into sort of legal challenges and hurdles with it. But if you'd be willing to try to think through a way to do something similar to this with city employees, I think that'd be really beneficial. The only other thing I would say is I understand the rationale for saying you must be a city resident. But if we do not get a city resident to potentially bid, then I think there's value in saying we'll now open it up to others as well, as long as you're willing to be a resident, because there is value in also bringing residents into the city to live
Good
here.
idea.
So,
Yep. That's a very good idea.
That's a good idea.
I will say, Councilman Lavelle, when we were talking about it before, it could be in the employee side. So you can have different benefits that the city gives as an employer to its employees. And so potentially of like, you could do a $500 down payment for houses that were bought in the city of Pittsburgh. I don't know, something along those lines that comes more as an employee benefit as opposed to the discount on the city stuff. So that's just one idea, but we can discuss it more.
okay, and I don't remember the specifics of it, but since we're talking about it, the URA did something like that, where we helped incentivize individuals to purchase property within the city, and I forget how we structured it, but I will look that back up, and then maybe we can apply that.
Happy to look at that.
Say it again, Councilwoman.
Isn't it a forgivable second mortgage? I think most of Friendship got gentrified that way years ago. It was about 20 years ago, so not that long, where there was, you had to meet the income qualifications, but you got a second mortgage that was forgivable after living in the house for 5 years.
That may be, I'm thinking of something we did recently, but within like the last 2-3 years. So I'll have to look it up to see, did it work, how it worked, and then if that makes sense to apply as a benefit to city employees. Okay.
Thank you, Council President.
Thank you. All those in favor of Bill 1892, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Affirmative recommendation. New
Thank you.
papers,
Thank
Bill
you for your work.
1915.
Thank you.
Bill
Thank you.
1915, resolution authorizing the issuance of a warrant in favor of attorney registration for 2025 Pennsylvania Attorney Annual Registration for an amount not to exceed $5,225 over 1 year.
Thank you.
Is there a motion?
Motion to approve?
Second.
Discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor of Bill 1915, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Affirmative recommendation. Bill 1916.
Bill 1916, resolution authorizing the issuance of a warrant in favor of Bernstein Berkeley PC for expert legal services in connection with a litigation matter for an amount not to exceed $6,115.50 over 1 year.
Motion to approve?
Second.
Discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor of Bill 1916, please indicate by saying aye. Aye. Affirmative recommendation. Bill 1917.
Bill 1917, resolution authorizing the mayor and the city solicitor on behalf of the city of Pittsburgh to enter into a professional consultation services agreements, or amendments thereto with Exponent, Inc. in connection with claims and litigation involving the Fern Hollow Bridge at no cost not to exceed $40,000 over 1 year.
Motion to approve?
Second.
Discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor of Bill 1917, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Affirmative recommendation. Bill 1920.
Bill 1920, resolution further amending resolution number 886 of 2021, effective December 27th, 2021, entitled Resolution Adopting and Approving the 2022 Capital Budget and the 2022 Community Development Block Grant Program and the 2022 through 2027 Capital Improvement Program to decrease facility improvements by $328,662 and increase park reconstruction by $328,662.
Motion to approve?
Second.
Discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor of Bill 1920, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Affirmative recommendation. That moves us on to invoices. Is there a motion on invoices?
So moved.
Second.
Discussion? I have no notes about invoices from our council budget director. All those in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Invoices are approved. P cards. Is there a motion on P cards?
So moved.
Is there a
Second.
Second.
Discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor of P cards, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
P cards are approved. Public Safety and Wellness Committee, chaired by Councilman Coghill.
Deferred papers, Bill 1531, resolution authorizing the mayor and the director of the Department of Public Safety to enter into a clinical affiliation agreement with Community College of Allegheny County to enact a precepting program allowing students to learn professional skills from city employees in the Bureau of Emergency Medical Services for training and educational purposes at zero cost to the city.
I've gotten a request, motion to hold for 3 weeks.
Second.
Discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor of a 3-week hold for Bill 1531, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Affirmative. Bill will be held for 3 weeks. Public Works and Infrastructure Committee, chaired by Councilperson Warwick.
New papers, Bill 1921, resolution providing for an amended reimbursement agreement or agreements with the Pennsylvania Department of Transportation for costs associated with the preliminary design, final design, right-of-way, and construction phases of the City Steps project, and providing for the payment of the costs thereof not to exceed $2,650,000, an increase of $1,800,000 from the previously executed agreement, reimbursable at 80%, and the municipal share of Commonwealth incurred costs at a cost to the City of Pittsburgh not to exceed $26,000, an increase of $16,000 from the previously executed agreement.
Motion to approve?
Second.
Discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor of Bill 1921, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Affirmative recommendation. Human Resources Committee, chaired by Councilperson Charlin.
New papers, Bill 1912, resolution amending Resolution 1 of 2022, which amended Resolution 322 of 2018, which authorized the mayor and the director of the Department of Human Resources and Civil Service to enter into an agreement with Integrated Health 21 LLC for services relating to the administration and management of a wellness portal by extending the term for 6 months, adding $80,540 for a not to exceed amount of $1,048,520.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Discussion, Councilperson Warwick.
I don't know if there's someone, oh, great, yeah.
Anyone is fine.
Do I press this?
Nope.
No,
You're good, you're good.
No,
No,
you
no,
just
no,
turned
no.
it off.
Okay. Second time here. Assistant Director Pam Petrot from Compensation and Benefits Human Resources. This is essentially ending the contract and paying through end of term for a program that was initiated in 2018. The contract will end December 31st of this year, as will the program that they instituted. We are in the works with regard to opening up some more cost-effective type of wellness programming, which you'll be hearing about in the coming months.
Okay, yeah, thanks. That was sort of what I was, so this is not the portal that you access if you have questions like about your benefits or something like that? No, that's a separate, right. So I guess that was
the organization IH21 administers the vaccination programs and flu shot programs that we have for council and city employees.
Okay.
As well as other types of programming. I'm fighting pneumonia, so my voice, I don't have the power behind it to speak, but essentially it's a contract that we have to facilitate wellness programming and those initiatives within the organization for the city of Pittsburgh employees.
So I just, for programs like this, I know, so it sounds like we're going to do a new contract with a new vendor.
Not necessarily.
Okay.
No, we are restructuring the design of wellness programming.
Okay. So I guess my question would be, because is in this process, and I know you may not have these answers right now, but just how many people actually use these programs? I mean, this is a lot of money to pay for, like how many people use the portal, how heavily used are these programs? Because if
absolutely,
if they're not that heavily used,
very
then,
good, very good
then
point.
we should question whether or not.
Exactly,
Yeah.
and that is why the whole purpose of this part of the legislation, when the initial legislation was written, it was written and started and ended at a middle part of a year. So it actually should have been ended at the end of a calendar year as opposed to mid-year.
Mm-hmm.
That's the first point. The second point is that the participation has not been where I would expect it to be for a program of this level, and so therefore we're not looking to renew a contract. We're simply wanting to have the funds available, which should have been part of the original 2018 contract, funded through the end of the calendar year.
Okay, so we're just paying our bill here.
Exactly.
Right, okay.
Thank you.
Okay, I mean, I guess I would just say really with,
we're looking to,
even if there's like a survey of employees to say, hey, employees, like, do you feel like you could use vaccine programs at work? I mean,
no, we're
just
not
to kind of-
eliminating the vaccine program. We're not going to invent
or whatever it is, right? But
Right.
just to know, even of a survey, like, are people, just to make sure that programs like that, because they are expensive, right?
Yes.
To make sure that people are, in a meaningful way, are really taking advantage. Otherwise, if they're not,
The data has been completed. The analysis has been completed that you're looking for. We have plans in place that will be coming forth throughout the coming months that will address more appropriate engagement opportunities beginning in 2026. But our commitment to the organization, both the city and the participants of the plan, as it was currently designed back in 2018, needs to be completed through the end of this year.
I got it.
That's it.
And to just maybe, I mean, again, like as budgets are tight, like moving into the, for HR, and I know that just to say it out loud, to make sure that, I mean, even if, maybe the question isn't, what would you like out of a wellness program? Maybe the question is, what would be the most benefit, like what could HR do that would benefit, because you don't know, like maybe it's like, well, maybe help like, getting promoted or getting other positions in, you know what I mean? Just to make sure that we're really concentrating the efforts where people, I mean, again, I don't know, maybe wellness program is the thing that people really want to have at work, but you got to ask to find out.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And you bring up a very valid point, which that research and analysis has been conducted within the last year and a half of my being with the city. But again, this particular legislation is finishing legislation that began in 2018. This has really, I think, your level of interest with regard to the questions on wellness programming are actively engaging, which we are coming up upon healthcare contract renegotiations and perhaps maybe additional discussions with council and questions that you might have. We could talk with Councilman Charlin to identify what those issues and questions might be, to have some discussion on what the future programming would be looking like, since we are working to conclude that here in the next 2 months. So, thank you for your valid points.
Thanks.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor of Bill 1912, please indicate by saying aye.
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 Affirmative recommendation. Thank you very much.
Hope you feel better.
We will move over Land Use and Economic Development Committee, since we've exhausted those bills, and move to Intergovernmental and Educational Affairs Committee, chaired by Councilman Mosley.
New papers, Bill 1913, resolution adopting plan revision to the City of Pittsburgh's official sewage facilities plan for 2305 Bedford Avenue at no cost to the city.
Motion to approve.
Discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor of Bill 1913, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Affirmative recommendation. Bill 1914.
Bill 1914, resolution authorizing the mayor and the directors of the Department of Public Works and the Department of Finance on behalf of the City of Pittsburgh to execute a declaration of restrictions and covenants and appurtenant documents in cooperation with Pittsburgh Water over certain easements and right-of-way in the vicinity of Riverview Park within the City of Pittsburgh, as a condition of an operations and maintenance and grant agreements Pittsburgh Water has with the Allegheny County Sanitary Authority in conjunction with stormwater improvements in the area at no cost to the city.
Motion to approve.
Second, discussion.
Discussion, Councilman Wilson.
Is there anyone here that can speak to the bill? If not, I'll just, I didn't want you to sit here the whole time and not.
Good morning.
Morning. Good
Morning.
afternoon.
Yeah, good afternoon.
This is in the area of Riverview Park. It's just self-explanatory. Alcosan is doing a major improvement, stormwater improvement along River Avenue by the Heinz plant and by Riverview Park at no cost to the city.
I'm sorry, that I thought I had my bearings, but then you said the Heinz plant.
Yes, it's a major stormwater improvement. They're tunneling.
Oh, so this is part of the tunnel?
Yes, this is part of the tunneling. Stormwater improvements to the Woods Run area.
Okay.
Going down toward the plant.
Okay, and what's DPW's involvement?
None really, except entering into this agreement with some of our rights of way.
Okay. All right, do you know who's the point person at the city for this?
I do not.
Okay. All right, thanks.
Thank you.
Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor of Bill 1914, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Affirmative recommendation. That exhausts our standing committee's agenda. We have some meeting announcements. This afternoon at 2 p.m., Council will hold a cablecast public hearing on Bill 2024-1284 as it relates to inclusionary zoning. Speaker registration has closed. Thursday, June 19th, Council and Clerk offices will be closed for the Juneteenth holiday. Next week, Council will hold their regular meeting on Tuesday, June 24th, and their standing committees meeting on Wednesday, June 25th, both at 10 a.m. To register to speak at these meetings and hearings, please fill out the sign-up form on the council meeting webpage by the deadline. You may also call the clerk's office at 412-255-2138. Is there anything from members? Councilwoman Cale Smith.
Just briefly, I just want to remind everyone about the Juneteenth holiday and the parade and everything, and there'll be traffic restrictions, I'm sure. So just to keep an eye on the city's website or on the in the media. And I also want to congratulate you on this ultra marathon you completed. I read this, I'm like, oh my God, what did you walk or run 70 miles? What was it?
Yes. Thank you, I appreciate it.
Yeah, what was it? You walked or ran?
The Laurel Highlands Ultramarathon, yes, this last Saturday.
Well, I saw it on your page, so I was like, oh my God, I hate her even more now. No, just kidding.
Thanks, Councilwoman. Appreciate it.
No, I'm proud of you. Thank you.
Thank you. Anything else from members? Councilperson Charlin, followed by Councilman Mosley.
Yes, just briefly, I would like to call for a post agenda on the residential permit parking program. We've got a lot of concerns from my district about how this, how the rate increases will help with enforcement, and would like to call on the parking authority to have that discussion.
Second.
Thank you. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. The post agenda, correct?
Yes.
Will be scheduled. Thank you.
Thank you.
Councilman Mosley.
Yeah, I just wanted to remind the public that today, June 18th, is the last day to submit public comment around PRT's proposed cuts.
Oh, that's important.
Thank you. Thank you. Anything further from members? Seeing none, I will take a motion to approve the minutes and adjourn the meeting.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Meeting is adjourned.